Alright, so that Ghost of Tsushima DLC looks very interesting. Of course, the price bracket might be a huge turnoff for many of you guys out there, especially on the PlayStation 5. It's very hard to justify a DLC costing $30 nowadays, but today we're gonna cover a very interesting leak. Allegedly, a quality assurance tester has leaked a ton of information about the Iki Island update and the big director's cut update that we will get this August, and of course, a ton of the details regarding the features, armor sets, supposedly the story length of about 15 to 20 hours of new gameplay without of course the side content, and that's a really big surprise if that's actually true, but I will also try to dismantle this piece by piece because again, just some of this information seems so untrue and so far-fetched that it's hard to believe it's real, so let's jump right into all of that. But I will say this, a lot of you guys out there were probably looking at the new update, eagerly anticipating it because you know Ghost of Tsushima was one of the best releases of last year. It's very likely that many of you out there were very big fans of the game, considering that it also got quite a number of free updates, especially that Legends mode. It's still free out there, you can go ahead and play if you find somebody to party up with. It's also very challenging, but then you saw the announcement for the director's cut that has a pretty steep price tag for a DLC. Now admittedly, the cost for the DLC alone on both the old gen and the new gen is only $20. It's just that on top of that, for the PlayStation 5 there's another $10 on top for the next gen upgrade, which a lot of other games out there have done for absolutely free. And look, I get it, there's development costs and there's money to be made, but at the same time I feel that if they do provide good enough and plenty enough content in that DLC, most people are willing to give it a pass for the new price tag. But I digress, let's talk about that leak and let's talk about this supposed quality assurance tester and his leak over on Reddit, because it does seem pretty compelling while at the same time some parts of it are quite hilarious. So he mentions that he's a quality assurance tester, partially disabled by some kind of illness. Flight Night Round 4 was my first experience with beta testing. Now I want you to pause there for a second because this already is a huge red flag for me, because these two pieces of information alone are plenty enough to make a very narrow list of people that might fit this category. A person with a certain disability that tested a certain game for the first time, who is also now working for Sucker Punch in testing their new DLC. Surely enough, there can be more than a handful of people in this category. So if this was true, these people would be at a severe risk of losing their career in a matter of minutes. That is why I believe this is already a huge red flag for everything that the rest of the thread is mentioning. But regardless, we're gonna continue, and he mentions that yeah, I have worked for many prestigious companies. First of all, nobody says that, nobody who does QA says prestigious companies in the gaming industry, including EA Sports, that's not a thing, it's Electronic Arts, Naughty Dog and Sucker Punch. In the past, I have been planning about joining Reddit. Now that I have some free time, I have decided to do so because it's so complicated to join Reddit, a free platform that takes like 5 seconds to create an account on. So yeah, I mean, come on. Despite not being a beta tester for Ghost of Tsushima, I'm familiar with the game after spending countless hours in its immersive world. I did, however, beta test Ghost of Tsushima Iki Island. He also spelled that wrong, he spelled Ike Island, and I'd like to share with you some of the details I enjoyed. Now, first of all, this sounds like a fan pretending or play pretending that he is a beta tester or a quality assurance tester, when in reality it's probably far from the truth. Also, beta testing Ghost of Tsushima is not a thing. Maybe quality assurance testing was something that was happening at some point for Ghost of Tsushima, but there was no way in hell a beta testing phase for Ghost of Tsushima, unless maybe they called that something similar internally, but there's no way they would call it that officially for Ghost of Tsushima, the base game. So this is another big red flag right here. But beautiful Iki Island is located off the coast of Tsushima, he mentions, and by that I believe he means like 50 kilometers away or 30 miles, because that's actually what the distance is between the two islands. So maybe it fits the off the coast you know, parameters here, but I'm not sure, dude. I'm not buying it. In terms of size, it is about the same as Tsushima's bottom portion of the island. Look, first of all, if this was indeed a person that spent countless hours in its immersive world when talking about Ghost of Tsushima base game, they would probably know that the bottom portion of the island is called Izuhara, because that's, you know, the literally first part of the game that you play in for the first like at least 10 to 15, even 20 hours depending on your play style. So they would know the name of that if it was a true fan that played countless hours. Maybe it's not really countless hours, but still, it's still not real, because Izuhara is about twice the size of Iki Island in its entirety. Well, not really like exactly twice. Iki Island is about 60% of Izuhara if you were to look at Google Maps alone, and at the same time I would not expect for Sucker Punch to mess up with the proportions, since they were, you know, pretty, you know, okay in the base version of the game, with the regions being proportional to the size of the island, even though, you know, the island was indeed way smaller in terms of terrain size compared to the real thing. Still, I'm doubtful of everything this leak is saying up until this point. It does add new wildlife such as leopards, squirrels and monkeys to Ghost of Tsushima thanks to its colorful landscapes. The island is also home to a volcano, which is all information you can find by simply Google searching Iki Island, and that's literally the first thing that it tells you. So I don't think this is any breakthrough news, if I were to be perfectly honest. But here is where the next big piece of information comes in, and actually it requires quite a bit of balls to come up with a claim like this. So I will take it for now, even though it's not officially confirmed, but for me the expansion adds roughly 15 to 20 hours of gameplay. In general, I stuck mainly to the main quest line and did little side questing. So 15 to 20 hours of gameplay, mainly main quests and no side content, is literally Cyberpunk 2077 right there. So I don't know, dude, but I haven't seen any DLCs being 15 to 20 hours to begin with the entirety of the content, let alone with only the main story and excluding the side content. So at this point I'm very much doubting this, but you know, I will praise this leaker for having the guts to come up with a ridiculous statement like this. If this proves to be true, then Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut DLC might very well just be the most worth it DLC of all time. It was a well thought out plot that kept me attentive for the next turn of events. Story wise, I would give Iki DLC 4.7 out of 5. It was interesting and in many ways better than the main story of the game. So far so good. Here is an overview of what I recall being added in the game through this expansion. So he mentions as follows: a new heavy armor set, not really my style, but I had to test everything for bugs. Also added a new medium grade armor that has both bow and melee perks. Unlike anything else in the game, this armor looked totally different. And also finally, a new light grade armor has been added. This hooded outfit reminded me of the old ninja shows my father used to watch when I was a child. Stealth and bow damage were also provided with the armor. The outfit also gives Jin 25% faster attack speed when he used a sword or a bow with it. Now, I will say this about these new heavy armor sets and whatnot. First of all, the game doesn't make any distinction between different armor weights. Like, there's no penalty for wearing armor that is a lot more bulky. As a matter of fact, some of the armor sets in the game, like for example the Sakai clan armor, starts pretty much on the light side at first, and once you upgrade it to the maximum level, you know, like just providing it with the upgrades at the NPC that does this, it actually becomes a lot bulkier. And this is true for other armor sets in the game as well. So there's no heavy, light or medium grade armor in Ghost of Tsushima unless you look at it purely from an aesthetical point of view. Also, it doesn't give more information on how that medium grade armor looks totally different than anything else, when literally all armor sets in the game so far look totally different from one another. Like if you take Tadayori armor, it's very different from Sakai clan armor, which is very different from like the Mogul armor, which is very different from like the Ghost armor. So they don't really look alike, they're all from different styles. styles and fit different themes, and this is just like a handful of these armors. Also, that outfit that reminded him of the old ninja shows kinda sounds like the ghost armor, or maybe it's just me. Nonetheless, there's a bunch of other information here at the bottom, like including new torches in the game. Supposedly there's part of a new cave mission in the storyline that we will use that in, and there's also 3 new horse armors that can be colored, about a dozen or so new charms, which sounds pretty interesting. It would be way more than they have ever added in the previous updates, including the Legends update, and I don't believe that they would introduce dozens of new charms when there's dozens of them already in the game that already cover pretty much every aspect of it. Some fun ones that affect how Jin looks, transforms into Lord Shimura, young Jin, and Ryuzo. So yeah, I mean, this would sound actually interesting from a gameplay point of view, but I'm not sure how much of this is real. Also, new shrines, rainbows added, new flute tunes, new enemies, new Mongol types that we know from the trailer anyway, and pretty much everything else from here on we got from the trailer as well. But the one that is most compelling is the new fighting stance. A high side kick, spinning head kick along with jumping helicopter kick are mixed with sword attacks in this style. Somersaults and backward flips results from side and backstabbing. Now look, this sounds like a very ambitious DLC according to this person, but I just don't see them adding completely new like animations and types of attacks in a DLC. New story content and new things to visit and to collect, yes, but new stuff, mo-capped, I don't think that that would be a part of the new DLC. So again, take this with a grain of salt. I've seen this being posted by a number of people over on YouTube and whatnot. I don't think it's real, guys. I'm not sure, maybe it's just my intuition, but I don't think this is it. But yeah, thanks so much for watching and peace.